In this video, I will go over how to make linear equations without using a graph. Now sometimes you are presented with a table and you need to figure out a linear equation from a table rather than using a graph. Now recall back from the last video that the formula for a linear equation is y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. So from this table, we need to figure out the slope and the y-intercept. Let's start off by finding the slope. So in order to find the slope, you need to use the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, in order for us to figure out the slope and what these variables are, we need to first pick 2 points from our table. So I'm going to pick point -2, 2 and point 1, -7. You could pick any 2 points from your table and they will work. Now we label these points. So I'm going to label this point 1 and I'm going to label this point 2. So you can label these points anyway, like 1, 2. Now what we need to do here, the next step is to look at y2. So we look at our second point, 1, -7, and we find the y coordinate. So the y coordinate of 1, -7 is -7. Now we're subtracting this by y1. Now we look at our first point, -2, 2, and we find the y coordinate of -2, 2, which is 2. So we're subtracting it by 2. Now we divide this by x2 minus x1. Now x2, we look at our second point, which is 1, -7, and we look at our x coordinate, which is 1. And we're subtracting this by x1. So we look at our first point, -2, 2, and we look at the x coordinate, -2. So we're subtracting this by -2. Now we have -7 minus 2 over 1 minus -2. Now we simply solve this. So -7 minus 2 is -9, and 1 minus -2 is 3. So m equals -9 over 3. And we can simplify this as m equals -3. Now, instead of writing y equals mx plus b, instead of m, we could write our slope, -3. So y equals -3x plus b. Now we need to figure out our y-intercept. And in order for us to do this, we need to find a point where x is 0. So x is 0 right here, 0, -4. So when x is 0, the line is on the y-axis. So that's why this is the y-intercept, -4. So b is equal to -4, the y value of x when x is equal to 0. Now instead of writing b, we can write -4. So our equation is y equals -3x minus 4. Now let's check our answer. So we pick any point, -1, -1, and now I'm going to substitute in -1 into x, and then I'm going to solve. So -3 times -1 is 3, minus 4 is -1. And as you can see, the y coordinate is -1. So this is the right formula, y equals -3x minus 4. Now what about if we had 2 points instead of a whole table? How would we figure out the slope and the y-intercept? Well, the first step is to find our slope, which we can do with the formula. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, like last time, we label these points 1 and 2. So this is point 1, this is point 2. Now, to find y2, we look at the y coordinate of point 2. So point 2 is -1, 12, and the y coordinate is 12. So y2 is 12, and we're subtracting this by y1. So we look at our first point, 4, -3, and we look at the y coordinate, -3. So we're subtracting it by -3. And we do the same thing for the x's. So the x2 would be -1, and we're subtracting this by x1, which is +4. So now that we have this, we simply evaluate it. So 12 minus -3 is 15, and -1 minus 4 is -5. So our slope is -3. Now we can rewrite this as y equals -3x plus b. Now here's where things get a bit different. How would we find our y-intercept? Well, in order for us to find our y-intercept, we pick any one of these points. So I'm going to pick point 4, -3. And now instead of writing x and y, we substitute these points. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write 4. And instead of writing y, I'm going to write -3. Now we isolate for b. So negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Now, in order to move the negative 12 to the other side, we add 12 to negative 3, and this cancels out the negative 12 on the other side. And so we're left with b equals 9. So we figured out our y-intercept. And now we have our linear equation, y equals negative 3x plus 9. Now we could also check our answer by taking the second point and substituting the x value to see if we get the correct y value. So instead of writing x, we can write negative 1. So negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, plus 9 is 12. And this proves that this is the correct equation, y equals negative 3x plus 9. Now you don't always have to check your answer, but it's good practice to make sure that you have the right answer. And that concludes the video. So if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below and they will be answered as soon as possible.